If we end up by the end of Monday's session getting a doji or getting a spinning top, then you got a shot at an evening start. We don't know if we're going to rally back up or drop and take out this low. There's a lot more time for this session. If we end up, and that's if, we end up with a candle of indecision, then it can be a continuation or reversal pattern. A reversal, we'd have to get a wide range bar and come back up sharply, start moving back towards that death cross. A continuation pattern takes us down to the rising trend line in the weekly time frame from the 2022 low. Now here's what I'm watching in the weekly time frame. Now this is the trend line from the 2023 low, and with the sell-off that we had on Sunday, we've taken it out and we're testing the 50 and the 200, the 50 EMA and the SMA one more time. The light green line is the EMA, and the dark green line is the simple moving average. They're both right at the same area. Now that's key support. Now trend lines change. I've seen that over and over with Bitcoin over the years, that channels can change, channels can expand. And again, that's possible, but it's also possible we're moving back to this trend line from the 2022 low and the higher low that's set up there. So that's still possible. That would take us down to the 70, 71, 72,000 area. Below horizontal support at 74,000. And again, that 74,000, 75,000 area is key support. If you lose it and you come down to test this trend line, you better not stay down there. You better get back above the 50-week, back above 74,000, back above Bitcoin's average price, and rally back up and break out of this trend line. Because if you lose that area and stay below, you can drop below 74, 75,000. You could drop below it, but you better not stay below it if we're going to recover. If you stay below it, that is extremely bearish. So this would be the lower low scenario, but we still end up getting a recovery and coming back up and eventually moving to the upper boundary of the channel. And I think you can do that going into summer months. I think it's very, very possible that Bitcoin recovers to a new all-time high. I think it's more likely to happen than not to happen. I don't think this is the end of Bitcoin right here. I don't think it's the end yet. I think we're going to end up getting one more push higher. Showing you the bearish scenario because, like I said, we do lose 74,000, 75,000. That would be extremely bearish, not being able to get right back above it. You got a bull flag here. If we can recover and slightly breach this trend line, then we need to break out of this downward trend line of the bull flag for Bitcoin. Now, I told you about these other trend lines. When we hit the December and the January top, we turned off these trend lines. This one's from the 2017 high connected to the 2021 peaks, and we hit it and we turned down at both of those tops right there and right there. Okay, and now we're selling off, and if we continue to sell off, if we do we're hitting the just under the 50% retracement from this low that we had at 49,000. Okay, and you've rallied up, and now we've hit the 50% retracement. We've moved just beyond it. If we go lower and hit the trend line from the 2022 low with our log scaling, this is linear right here, but I wanted to show you the retracements. The 61.8 Fibonacci retracement of that move is at the 71,000 area. The 71,000 area is a rising trend line from the 2022 low with their log scaling. This is linear. Some people look at logs, some people look at linear. I look at both. Good information from both. Here, you got a Fibonacci retracement coming in at the 71,000, where our log scaling trend line at the 22. Should Bitcoin go to a new low? We turned off this trend line from the 2017 high. We also turned off the trend line from the 2021 low on the log scaling. This is linear. Let's look at log. Here, I don't have anything all written all over it. It's a little bit cleaner that you can see the trend line right here from the 2022 low there, the higher low that's set up. And again, the channel that I've drawn in here. If we go lower, that's taking you down to that 71,000, 72,000, maybe as low as 70,000 area. And then I think you're going to end up going higher. And I think you're going to end up going higher. And I think you're going to get a V-shaped type recovery where it's just, you're going to get an explosive move higher. Then I think we're eventually going up to this level. Now, we did turn off of this trend line from the 2021 low, separating the two 2021 peaks. And again, if you look at this, you turned off of it at the December high and the January high. I talked about this back at those highs. That's why I was able to call the day of those tops. And I told you we were topping on those days. We're turning off resistance here off of these trend lines in the weekly time frame. But again, I believe this move is corrective. I believe we're pulling back to build momentum to end up going higher. So we'll see what happens. But you've got a trend line right down here. If we do test it, again, Bitcoin had better not stay below Bitcoin's average price. Now, if we end up moving below this level, say you get a sharper push below here, you might change the angle of ascent on the trend lines. We might get something more like this, where we have something, where Bitcoin drops down much further below this trend line, moving towards the 200 week moving average, and you get something much uglier. Now, again, if we did that, we would be losing 74,000. Very difficult to get back above it. So again, show you these weekly charts real fast right here, and attempting to test this 50-week moving average yet again. This is where we found support back over here. We tested it twice. We're doing that right now. We did it at 49,000. We bounced. We did it again right here for the higher low at 52,000, and we bounced, and we ended up breaking out. Could we repeat that? I think that's very possible. We tested it over here just above it, and again, eventually got back up to new highs there above, bouncing off of it at that 25,000 area. Now, we have some very interesting things going on with the sequence counts and in the weekly time frame. So again, I'll show you that right now, talking about the weekly charts. Here's the daily first. Again, we got this 13 count, kind of getting that higher low there, and then I told you we could still go lower, because again, you can have still go lower and get a higher low. As I've talked about, we can have an A, a B, and a C if we can establish a higher low. And this could be wave 1 and wave 2, and we could be followed by 3, 4, and 5. Assuming we get a higher low, and we don't know that yet until we get a higher high, we could still take out this low. Nevertheless, you got a 13 count. Now, this 13 count marked the top and a reversal at the December high. This 9 count, we got it the day after the top on January 21st and marked a reversal. We got a 9 count bottom right here. It only marked a counter trend bounce, and the decline resumed. Signal stayed bearish. We have this 13 count. Now, you can get a 13 count, you can go a little bit lower, and it could still play out. Is it a counter trend rally, or is it going to mark a bottom? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Do we end up taking out this low right here, or do we establish a higher low? We came down to 77,000 so far. Here's our low here at 76,000. So we'll be watching to see which way it plays out. Play out either way. But these counts have marked turning points, either giving you counter trend rallies or reversals. So which is this right here? It does show price exhaustion. We're getting another interesting bar in the weekly time frame this week, and that is we're starting off the week as we just finished the Sunday session. For the week, Bitcoin closed out the week down 4.88%, and we got a possible inverted hammer. Now, that's a reversal candle pattern, but it's got to be confirmed. You got to close above the high of the candle. It's where you rally up, the rally fails, you get this tail, okay, this wick, and then you end up getting this real body down at the low end. It's a reversal pattern. It's the opposite of what we had up here at the top, where you had this topping tail, and this was a shooting star candlestick. This is an inverted hammer, an upside down hammer, very similar to what we had over here. Okay, but it looks like this shooting star kind of a pattern, only at a bottom. So it is a reversal pattern, but it's got to be confirmed. Candlesticks mean nothing unless they get confirmed. Get a follow through. So Bitcoin's got a shot at a bottom with that inverted hammer candlestick that we have in the weekly time frame. That was bar 8. Okay, that bar 8 or 9 could be the bottom if they are going to produce a reversal. So you have a 9 count here right now. Still could end up taking us well beyond the low here. Still could happen. Don't have to do that. We got to close here below this level. This was only an intra-week low. So we're already below that level on a closing basis. That may be it if we can establish a higher low. But the risk is that we still come down to the 71,000 area to the trend line of support and then try to rebound back up, and you end up seeing a larger divergence develop in the daily time frame. So again, a couple of different possibilities for the bottoming process, but wanted to let you know this is suggesting that either we got a bottom here with bar 8 for possibly a higher low, or we possibly get it with bar 9 going to lower levels, which is still possible. We could go lower and end up getting a bottoming tail and get a hammer candlestick or something like that if we do go lower. So just some things to be aware of, that we're setting up this week a 9-count buy signal on the weekly chart. Now, again, you could get these counts and you sometimes go a little higher. Other times they mark turning points, like we saw 9-count at the January high. It marked a turning point the very day after the peak, or the 13-count in December marked in the daily time frame. It marked the very top. Sometimes they mark tops and bottoms the very day, or in this case, the very week. We could still go lower in doing that, so keep that in mind. Did you hear what I just said? We could still go lower. This bar, we're just starting the week off. Is it going to be a reversal bar up and confirm this, or are we going to go down first and get a divergence and get something ugly? Keep in mind that we'd have a reversal bar, so whichever way it plays out, for a higher low or lower low, other scenario with the moving into a new bear market, I think is less likely. I think you're going to end up getting a reversal. So just to let you know, we are getting this 9-count bullish reversal signal here, but the week is just starting. So this bar, we might go lower, it might go higher, it can play out any way, but it is going to be perfected buy signal once it is done, whether lower or higher, and we don't know that yet. I'm saying if we take out 74,000, we might get right back above it. You might have a bottoming tail, freak everybody out, and then get your reversal bar by the end of the week here. So again, this is the weekly chart. We're just starting out the weekly chart. You've got the whole rest of the week for this bar to develop. So do keep that in mind. Hey, watch the video all the way through. I got really important things to share with you. But here, again, I told you bars are going back and forth from red to green to red to green. We're seeing bars turn right back to red. Again, we got to get a higher low and break this downward trend line if we're going to turn this around. The risk is that we just blow past this level and start moving towards the 2022 trend line at 70 or 71,000. Now, going back and forth from color to color here could be suggesting a bottoming process if we can turn things back to bullish, get back above the 200 and the trend line. As we're getting the death cross, we're getting the sell-off. It could be marking a bottom. It could go a little bit lower and bottom shortly after that. Times with the death cross, you bottom either before it hits or right after it hits. Death crosses can be associated with bottoms. As we had the Sunday sell-off, Bitcoin, now we're into the Monday session. Now it's trying to get this bottoming signal. I told you again that we could come down and undercut the lower Bollinger Band, which we're doing. And again, I told you that we had the tightening of the Bollinger Bands, and it's suggesting something big is going to happen. Now, is it big that we've come up here, up to the upper band and horizontal resistance from the January low, or the January low, and got rejection there again after getting rejection here at it, and we start moving in the other direction down here? That's possible. But it's also possible, just as possible, that we undercut this area, get a higher low, and then begin to move in the other direction. Over here, we had the tightening of the Bollinger Bands, and you had this move to the upper band here, and then you went down. You went in the other direction. Over here, we had it right here, and again, you went up to the upper band, back to the lower band, and then you went and made new highs. So do we have something like that, like to the upper band, to the lower band, and then you reverse? And we had it back over here. So just something I'm watching. Again, this signal could go away. But right now, as we start the Monday session, it's trying to form. Could that be suggesting a bottom? It could be canceled out if we go lower, or it may remain. We could still go dramatically lower to the next level of support, the 70, 71, 72,000 area, and still have this, but at much, much lower levels. Okay? And again, some of these signals have been pretty incredible. Here, again, we ended up going lower, but then got a recovery before that signal played out. Again, marked tops over here, some of these signals. Again, had a big rally, 8%, gave it back. And again, the signal is marked as a top. Do we see, a big drop on Bitcoin back to the low 70,000 area, to the trend line of the 2022, or do we hold here at horizontal support near our 50-week moving average at Bitcoin's average price in the daily time frame? But the Bollinger Bands are telling us something big. A big squeeze move is going to happen, either up or down. And right now, again, it's setting up. Maybe that's starting to the downside right now as we had over here, but could it be that we come down here like we did over here? We come down, and then we begin to move sharply in the other direction. Could it be? What you got to do is get some kind of good news surrounding the tariffs. And again, we're likely going to hear that happen. We have, again, 50 countries, according to the Trump administration officials, saying 50 countries now moving to negotiate with the United States. I found this signal as we started the Monday session very, very fascinating. Doesn't mean, listen carefully, are you listening? Are you listening? That doesn't mean we've bottomed. It still may be in the bottoming process, and we still may go lower, like I said, with a bottoming tail here or something like that. We may not get that, but it could still happen. I hope you heard what I just said. Still are at risk of going to new lows. My signals have to all begin to turn back to bullish here if we're going to turn it around with a higher low or a lower low scenario. Now, I went through the Elliott wave count with you in, not my last video, but the video before that. And I talked about the 78.6 Fibonacci. I told you if we tried to undercut that lower Bollinger Band in the daily time frame, we could come back to the 78.6 Fibonacci. We've overthrown it now. 78.6 Fibonacci from this low to this high. Oops, and my Fibonacci retracements moved on me. Let me fix it. So again, we're barely above this peak, this bottom over here. So again, the risk is that we end up taking it out. Now, this scenario is that assuming we don't take this level out, if we get a higher low here without taking it out, then this count is still very much in play. And we'd have a leading diagonal with wave 1, and then we'd have this A, B, and then this C move now for wave 2. And then we would come back up and break the downward trend line, and you would get your wave 3 starting. This is the 4-hour chart here. And if we get a higher low, then again, you could get this wave 3, this wave 4, and then go on and get your wave 5 and take us up to the long-term trend line right here to, again, could take us to the 150,000 area or overthrow it. Could be 135, 145,000 if we reach it quickly. We can have some pretty powerful rallies, but if we get a higher low. Now, if we don't get the higher low, then the risk is we go back to that trend line. Let me just bring it up in the weekly time frame. Again, if we end up going back, it will invalidate that as a wave 2, and again, then you have this trend line coming into play here from the 2022 low, again, that could take us down towards a 70 or 71,000 area. Let me just move this out of the way here so you can see what's going on. And again, if we have bottomed, then I think you've completed the WXY corrected pattern here for the wave 4, intermediate wave 4, meaning we're going to start intermediate wave 5 next. It's going to take us up to likely up to this upper channel. Okay. Now, if we haven't finished it yet, then rather than finishing Y right here, then Y finishes down here, and you have the pattern not yet complete. So if we have a higher low, then again, the next thing that's going to follow here is this big push higher right here, up into this upper channel. So again, we'll be watching to see how it unfolds, but I do believe that S&P 500 and Bitcoin are still going to get the intermediate wave 5, and Bitcoin may already have it done if we can establish a higher low. Maybe it's not done, but I think that, again, we're in intermediate wave 4. That's this red 4 you see right here. It's either done or it's about to finish, one or the other. S&P is still carving it out. Now, I did a video on Saturday. I'm going to do one. We just closed, had the Sunday close. I just wanted to show you a couple things I'm looking at. Bitcoin had the drop down. I told you I thought it would drop below the lower Bollinger Band. I think it's got an ABC. I could be wrong about the higher low, though. I just want to make that clear. I just want to talk about real fast. And again, to be brief in this video and maybe make another one tomorrow so I can kind of keep you posted with all the volatility that we got going on. So I'll try to just be brief and just let you know what I'm looking at. And then maybe by tomorrow's close, we'll see, because we'll see if we get that higher low or the lower low. I think you got three possibilities. This is Bitcoin futures right now. It opened up, it's down. And there are three possibilities. You get a higher low with Bitcoin, and you've already bottomed out, you get a higher low, and then we go get a higher high, and we start breaking out. The other possibility is, I think that you come back maybe towards this trend line, which would take us towards 71,000 or so, 72,000, the low 70,000 area, which is the rising trend line from the 2022 low. You drop below the 74,000 area, but you get back above it, and you end up forming a divergence here. Now, we had a little Class B divergence right here where you had two equal lows, and that marked this bottom. That could be it. This could confirm a higher low, or you can get another reference point of a divergence. Same thing on the MACD. MACD can form a divergence right here. Volatility we're now getting on Bitcoin here for the Sunday session, it could be that we're joining the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. The prediction is by Kramer and all over the internet now that we're going to have this 1987 crash. We are down further. We are down more. And again, we're likely bottoming. The narrative right now is, oh, we're going to see this 20% crash in one day in the stock market, 25% crash, like we did in 1987. Where again, markets are likely in a bottoming process, but Bitcoin could still move to a new low. So again, do we get a higher low, or do we come back down to this trend line, to this 70, 71, 72, 70,000 area? And if we do, we'll hit that trend line going back to the 2022 low, the long-term trend line for our channel, okay? I still believe Bitcoin's going to make new highs. I believe that Bitcoin is in a bottoming process, but like I said, there's still risks that we take this low out. The three scenarios: we get a higher low, and then we go get a higher high. We get a lower low, and we get this divergence, and then we bottom out, and we go on and go about our way into correction. And we drop below 74, 75,000 key support, but we drop into the low 70,000 area, but we bounce off the trend line, and then we get back up, back up and resume the advance. Is a correction. Those are the two bullish scenarios. The bearish scenarios, we drop below 74,000 and we can't get back above it. That's the bearish scenario. I got some real important things to share with you, so you might want to watch the video all the way through so you know what I'm talking about. Now, once we complete the bottoming process on Bitcoin, I think you're going to get a massive, massive rally. Again, I want to continue to point this out to you. And this is my weekly chart on Bitcoin. This is the awesome oscillator. Okay, the MACD. Look at the Bitcoin futures. We're right at the 50-week moving average. That's almost equivalent to the 200 period in the daily time frame. Usually the 200 period usually hovers between the 40-week and the 50-week moving averages, depending on the stock or the average that it's doing. Look, I think the Bitcoin is not going to go into negative territory with the awesome oscillator price. I think you're going to get a massive, massive rally that's going to give Bitcoin this big move up. And this can go on into, through April, May. It can drag on into the summer, June, July, August, to where we end up getting maybe a August or September sell-off. It could drag out. It can go a little while. This would take us over into the summer here, or, maybe into something like that. This could drag out where we get this massive negative divergence. This first divergence right here has given us this 30% decline on Bitcoin. I think we're going to flip it. I think we're going to go back up. And then I think you're going to see the stochastic recycle back up, the MACD firm back up here, and I think you're going to see the awesome oscillator tick back up, being prevented from going into negative territory, and I think you're going to get this massive rally. Now, the way it can play out is awesome oscillator goes briefly negative. That's what we're seeing right now with NASDAQ and S&P. And then it turns back up. But we're getting, in the weekly time frame, we're getting a 9-count buy signal. Now, that doesn't mean we bottomed. We still may try to take out the low. My guess is we're going to get a higher low, but I could be completely wrong about that if we go down and hit the upper channel line. I'm telling you what I think, but my signals remain bearish. Okay, I think we can probably get a higher low. There's still the risk of going down and hitting the rising trend line. I think you've got some good support in here that we can bounce off of. But this is what I think is going to happen. And I think you're going to go to new highs. But then when this divergence forms and we go up and we take out 109,000, you know, Bitcoin can go up. I keep saying it. Bitcoin can go up 85% from here, you know, from the low that we just had at, 76,600. It can go up. If we go a little bit lower, maybe it goes up even more if we go a little bit lower. But I think Bitcoin can easily make it to the 135 to 145,000 area. And if we go up, you know, from 76,000, if you go up 100%, you're talking about going up above, you know, to 53, 54,000. I think that's reasonable. I think that is likely going to be the case. I think Bitcoin, I'm starting to, looking at my indicators and looking at resistance and support levels, I'm starting to think that Bitcoin's going to make it to 150,000 and probably just over that. But when we get there, the people that are really depressed right now, the herd, the moon boys, when we get there, they're going to be like, here we go, baby. Going to be going, Bitcoin's going to go to 200,000, you don't know what you're talking about, 300,000, 500,000. No, it's going to 1 million. No, 2 million. I told you, I saw this guy. I saw this guy on social media that had Bitcoin going to, I told you this a couple times. He had Bitcoin going to 2 million what was it? I forget now. What was it? 1 million or 2 million? I haven't looked at the chart in a while. I just saw it briefly. But I mean, he had these crazy predictions. He had us getting there and, over the course of several weeks, and we'll be at $2 million. I mean, that's how out of touch with reality that the herd is. And again, sentiment for Bitcoin and for the stock market is going to quickly change. We're now starting to see things turn around with the Trump administration already. And the stock market will begin to have a recovery. Bitcoin will have a recovery, get a relief rally. I wanted to show you this. I think it's really important. Continue to point out, I think you're going to get this negative divergence that forms on the awesome oscillator that ends up flipping this and turning us back up, getting us back above the 10 period, getting a bullish reversal of conditions here in the weekly time frame, getting back above the 20-week moving average, and going and making new highs. I think that we have a bull flag going into the weekly chart, into our trend line of support. I'm going to share this with you and continue to update you on this weekly awesome oscillator. This is the big picture right here. Now, just quickly, going back to the daily chart, we had the rebound here with Bitcoin futures off of the 200 period and with the Bitcoin price back up to the 200 period moving average. And the momentum indicators, they tried to flip bullish. You see the green bar or the blue bars and the green cloud? We tried to flip bullish here, but then we flipped back to bearish. If Bitcoin's going to end this either with a higher low or lower low without getting something more significant to the downside, we've got to see a bullish reversal of conditions happen on Bitcoin. So just to let you know what I'm watching for, if I bring it up close here, you can see, again, we flipped it. You see the little red arrow. You see the red bars and the red cloud. That's got to change, okay? And then we've got to be able to recover. Now, the risk is we still go and make a lower low, but then recover. The real risk is that we make a lower low and don't recover and lose Bitcoin's average price and lose the support levels I've been talking about, not be able to get back above those levels. So just want to let you know, again, momentum is still bearish. It's got to turn back to bullish if Bitcoin's going to attempt to recover. So we'll be watching today's gap here with the futures. We'll be watching to see if we can get a higher low with our March 11th low over here. Can we set up a higher low or get a lower low, but then still rebound back up, complete divergences, or is all hope lost? We lose 74,000. We lose key support. We can't get back above it. But again, momentum, and I want to be clear, my signals are still bearish. Momentum is still bearish, but we could be in a bottoming process if key support levels hold with either a higher low or a lower low scenario for Bitcoin. I'm still longer term bullish on a Bitcoin. I still believe it's going to go make new highs. I still think it's going to go towards 150,000. It's probably going to end up overthrowing 150,000 in all likelihood. I warned you in my last video on Saturday, in the Saturday session, that we are going to be getting the death cross. We're now getting the death cross. The 50 is crossing below the 200. Okay, Bitcoin's coming back. It's testing the slow, and it's testing Bitcoin's average price right there. Okay, and again, if we lose this area, you got more support down at 70, 71, 72,000, but you better get back above the 74, 75,000 area. If we get a higher low, if we establish a higher low, we need to recover, get back above the 200 period. We need to, in the 50, as they get the death cross and this trend line. Now remember, I talked about this in my last update. The last couple of times we've had the death cross, Bitcoin had already bottomed. And let me just bring it up here real fast for you. Here's a death cross from our sell-off of 33%, our last consolidation over here, and Bitcoin dropped 33%. By the time we got the death cross, Bitcoin had already bottomed, and we ended up getting a higher low. And we did sell off, we ended up getting a higher low, and eventually we broke above the 50, back above the 50, back above the 200 period moving average. Now again, it may not play out the same, still may go lower. We don't have to you always have it to where, Bitcoin's already bottomed. It could still go lower, but then the death cross could bring about a bottom. It's very possible. Other times in history where Bitcoin's gotten a death cross and it bottomed shortly thereafter. So again, it could be that the death cross is associated with the bottom. Whether a lower low or a higher low, we'll see what happens. The other scenario is we get a death cross and Bitcoin goes lower, but then recovers and it stalls at the 200 and can't get back above it, and the bottom ends up falling out of Bitcoin. That's a bearish scenario. My guess is we're not there yet. My guess is that's not going to happen. Now, if we end up, let me just finish my thought here. Over here, this consolidation, after we had bottomed in 2022, we consolidated, we went sideways, came back to the 25,000 area, and we got a death cross, and Bitcoin had already bottomed by the time the death cross happened. It had just bottomed right before it and eventually got back above that 200 and the 50 got back above the 200. So do we have something like that going on? Or does Bitcoin go to a new low and reach this trend line for the 2022 low? That's still possible, right around the 70, 71, 72,000 area, depending on when we come into contact with it, of the larger channel, and still ends up rising and recovering with surrounding the death cross. So that's another possibility. That's where we drop below the 74, 75,000 area of support. That's this horizontal support I keep talking about. Right in here, there's key support right here at the 74, 75,000 area. And we hit 76,600 so far. Now we're testing that low. If we go a little bit lower, this trend line could come into play here. And I've talked about this on the weekly chart as well. The scenarios where we get a lower low and Bitcoin recovers, or a higher low and Bitcoin recovers. I've seen prime parameter right here end up firming up like we did over here and bottoming out. Firming up right here, end up bottoming out, surrounding the 50-week moving average, which we're at in the weekly time frame, surrounding our 200 period moving average here, and the trend line looks like we're slightly breaching here from the 2023 low. The other bearish scenario is we get this where prime parameter goes negative and Bitcoin gets a big sell-off and again can't recover. You can't make new highs and you usher in the bearish phase. Right now, Bitcoin again has the same thing on the RSI we do with the awesome oscillator, and again it's in the negative region. The RSI, after we peaked over here, the RSI went negative and went negative. We had formed a negative divergence there, and it went negative, and it's been negative ever since. The pull-ups to the 50 have marked the counter-trend rallies, and again, this negative divergence from back over here. We had a divergence here, and then another one here, and that gave us this sell-off and the decline. The risk is we come down to this lower boundary, and the lower boundary takes us closer to the 2022 trend line, and we breach the 2023 here. So again, we'll be watching to see how we close by the end of the week, this week, and what happens. Do we take out this low, or do we establish a higher low? Death cross give us a bottom, and we start rallying back up to the trend line, and then pull back and maybe clear it and start trying to get above our 100 period moving average. or do we do more damage and take out this low right here? So just some things I'm watching right now. Bitcoin, for starting the Monday session, trying to recover, was negative starting off, and then now it's attempting to recover. We'll be watching to see what it looks like by the end of the session. I might do a video tomorrow depending on what happens, if we big rebound or a big sell-off. So check back tomorrow. I might do that. I have more to share with you right now, though. But again, we have, let me just bring up my other chart. We have the same thing here, the possibility of a divergence on the MACD, or again, confirmation of a higher low depending on what happens. We've come back to the support area right here. So again, we'll see if we take it out or if we establish a higher low. On the stochastic, Bitcoin's become very oversold here. Could be forming a divergence in this most recent price action right here that could still establish a higher low. So don't rule that out. I still think that is still very, very possible. Or the lower low scenario. I think one of those scenarios will likely be it plays out. I don't think we're moving into the bear market right now. I think we buy more time. We got to come back up, get back above the 50, the 200, and clear the trend line. Talk about Bitcoin backtesting right here. We're now moving below that trend line a little bit, so there still is risk of forming another reference point of a divergence. We already had this divergence right here give us that rebound back up above the 200, but then it failed at this horizontal resistance. This was a January low right here, and it failed right there. And then when we rallied up here, it failed at that same spot. And that was our trend line right here. This is the linear scaling, and we hit the trend line with the linear and the log scaling, the downward trend line and right here. So that's resistance. If we're going to get a higher low or a lower low and then rebound, we got to be able to come back up and clear the cloud. We got to clear the 50, the 200. We got to clear the downward trend line, and we got to clear this overhead resistance.